outside of the IMS membership to the public. So if you're working with customers that are not IMS members, this may be another possible introduction to get an insider view of what IMS is doing and the emphasis we're putting on LTI Advantage adoption and implementation right now. So first off, I wanted to call everyone's attention to IMS's intellectual property rights policy. There's a link just below the attendee list. That's at imsglobal.org/IP, and that intellectual property rights policy is how IMS governs the development and publication of standards, of our specification documents, very similar to what other standards organizations use for their IPR management. So that policy requires us to read the following statement at the start of these meetings. So at this time, I would ask that anyone in attendance inform me if they are personally aware of any claims under any patent applications or issued patents that would be likely to be infringed by an implementation of the specification or other work product that's the subject of our meeting today. You need not be the inventor of such patent or patent application in order to inform us that a claim might exist, and there is no penalty for expressing a belief that turns out to be inaccurate. And if you would rather discuss IP, patent-related questions, or have information you'd like to share, you're welcome to contact me or another IMS staff member at any time. I will place my email address here in the chat so you can reach me there as well. IMS also has a participation agreement published at imsglobal.org/PA, which essentially asks that the details of our discussion, the documents we're working on, not be shared outside of the membership of this group for the time being. And I just wanted to thank everyone. Let me share the link one more time to our Google document for those who may have just joined or in the process of joining. Wanted to thank everyone for attending this first LTI Roundtable discussion. This meeting is taking place during the regular weekly time slot that the LTI project group has been meeting for the last 2 years or so, year and a half at least. And so rather than, and we've invited our regular project group participants to be here as well as the rest of the IMS membership, those involved in the Learning Tools and Content Alliance, affiliate members, and other contributing members who may not have been participating in the LTI Advantage specification development work. So the purpose of this roundtable session is to learn about LTI Advantage, what it does, and how to begin implementing it. We want to answer implementation questions that you might have, especially from tools, as many of the early adopters include the prominent platforms that have been helping lead the development of the LTI Advantage specification, and also address any migration strategies that you might have related to current implementations of earlier versions of LTI as you look to adopt LTI Advantage. And really the point of these meetings is to encourage market adoption of LTI Advantage, and we're also anxious to learn from you what new features or extensions, existing pain points that you might have related to LTI, so we can see what is necessary to add to the LTI Advantage by extension. The project group is already actively working on some new features, functionality that will be introduced to LTI Advantage, again, by extension. So we also may offer during future sessions specific showcase opportunities. So those early adopters, those who've already implemented LTI Advantage, can demonstrate the inner workings of their platforms or the tools and share a deeper knowledge of how their integration and interoperability solutions work and how they started those development exercises. So again, this session is being recorded, and we will share the link following the meeting. So I would ask for those who may not have discovered the the mute, you can do a local mute on whatever device you might be using to connect to the audio, or WebEx has a red microphone icon that you can click on and off to mute your line. So before we jump into our agenda as it's outlined in that Google document, I wanted to let folks know that IMS is having a quarterly face-to-face meeting. It'll be in Long Beach the week of August 26th. On the 27th of August of that face-to-face meeting, we will be holding a technical congress, and you all are invited to attend that technical congress. We're looking to include LTI Advantage showcase for developers with an emphasis on the development side of LTI Advantage. Could be a platform, could be a tool. We're looking to fill a couple of 20-minute presentation slots demonstrating your work on LTI Advantage. And it's really an opportunity to continue to share the message with the community that your products are ready to go. They're working within the LTI Advantage framework, and to encourage others to adopt. So if you have interest in participating in that technical congress, you have my email address there in the chat that you can reach out to me directly. All right, I want to say thank you first off to our chairs. We have a combined meeting here today. We have our LTI project group as well as our LTI product steering committee. And I want to thank Wade Weichel from Blackboard, Claude Vervoet from Cengage, and Carl from Instructure for their leadership in these groups and their presence today in helping present this material to you. So we'll proceed as outlined in our agenda and begin first with an introduction to LTI Advantage. And Claude, I believe that was you. So
sure. I was not sure if I start or Wade starts. Wade, do you wait around? I can sure start anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see Wade as an individual.
Yeah, I'm surprised because yeah. Anyway, I can start. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, great.
So let me just find the share button somewhere. All right. So do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So it's a few slides covering LTI 1.3 Advantage. So what is LTI Advantage? I think you might already know, but just in case, LTI Advantage is the combination of LTI 1.3 and free services, and so that's a bundle LTI Advantage. And so LTI 1.3 is a revised LTI core specification, and it's mostly revised around security. And so it revisits how messages are built, LTI lunch are made, and also how services are accessed. And around that is core specification. Then you have a free extension, so deep linking flow, which allows you to go and grab and pick content and add it into the LMS, to the learning platform. Then you have the names and roles service, which allows you to discover the roster from the course the tool is launched from. And finally, the assignment and grade services, which allows you to report grades, but also do some gradebook column management. So we're going to go a bit more in details about those different elements. So the first thing we're going to talk is about LTI 1.3 in itself. So what are the big changes compared to the previous version of LTI? So here's from a security standpoint, the very first big change is that now we use asymmetric keys. So before we used the key and a secret, and both sides had the same key and the secret needed to be exchanged between the two parties. Now there is no such thing. There is no secret being exchanged. It's all asymmetric, and so each party, each side exposed to the other side, its own public keys. But there is no secret or private keys ever being exchanged, at least during the runtime, during lunches or service calls. So it's all based on public key and asymmetric crypto. So that's the number one change here. Then the other changes is that the messages themselves, they are no more a form-based or one-way payload that we used to see in LTI. Now they are JSON Web Tokens. And actually, the specific aspect of JSON Web Tokens, they are signed JSON Web Tokens. So not encrypted, just signed. But they're not just signed web tokens. They're also ID tokens. So an ID token is a signed Java Web Token with OpenID claims. So basically, when it comes to describing the identity of the user launching or doing the LTI launch, we did not define new claims. We reuse the claims as defined by OpenID. But there is more than identity into an LTI launch. So this is why an LTI message is in itself, if you want, a specialization of the ID token, because it adds to the OpenID token a set of LTI claims. And those LTI claims are going to be related to the context, the roles, and other information that are now relevant to LTI. So that's basically the new format of an LTI message. It's an enriched ID token. And feel free to jump in if you have any question on that. So it's not just that we use an OpenID token. We actually adopted the full OpenID flow. That means every LTI launch is actually an OpenID authentication flow. So this allows us to prevent cross-site scripting issues that might have been possible in LTI 1.1. And so here, the full flow, every launch that we do from a platform is following the OpenID authentication flow, which results at the end in the ID token, which is actually the LTI, and which is LTI payload claims to go to the tool. So I won't go into the details of that, but that's the main key point here is that we use OpenID all the way. And so that was for the launch. That means the UI, the browser integration. When you click on a link, what happens on the link is an OpenID flow that results into an ID token, and this ID token comes with LTI claims in it. But now there is also the actual service calls, and those service calls we use OAuth2 now, and OAuth2 using client credentials. So what that means, client credentials, that's first of all, because it's OAuth2, that means the tool will need to acquire an access token to be able to call services on the learning platform. But this access token, because it's client credentials, to get this access token, you don't need to involve the user. So there is no such thing as prompting the user to grant access to. The access has been granted to the tool, to the learning platform. So that's why it's client credentials. And so every service that's defined by LTI and by IMS will come with its set of scopes. And the scopes are basically the permissions you need to ask when you inquire for an access token. Every service will have its scopes defined. And when you ask for an access token, you must always scope it to the services you want to get access to. If you don't scope it, then you have no access to nothing. So as part of the specification, every service will come with a clear definition of the scopes that apply to that service. And so also another big change with it compared to LTI 1.1 is that LTI 1.3 is multi-tenant. So what really does that mean? What we mean by multi-tenant here is that we split registration from deployment. So registration is the exchange of all this security information, the public keys, the OpenID endpoints, and all those kind of things, and also the tool descriptions, kind of launches and the URLs and all of that. That's the registration. And this rather heavy piece of data that needs to be exchanged between the two parties. But in a multi-tenant world, you can register and yet still not be used. And when an institution, for example, under that learning platform will decide to use that tool, then it will create a deployment. And that deployment will be, so basically, in this case, there is no need to re-exchange all this OAuth2 and all the security information. You can just say, this tool is now used in this context, in this institution, in this organization. And this is, then the learning platform will issue a deployment ID. And the deployment ID identifies uniquely this deployment of the tool. And so what this means on the tool side is that you'll probably bind this deployment ID to an account. So in this example here, we have the University Caprica U, which deployed the tool. And so the tool has basically is binding the deployment ID to the Caprica U account. So that's really the multi-tenant. And maybe that's a new concept here introduced, the concept of a deployment. So that was for everything that was related to the LTI 1.3, really the core mechanics of LTI. So now we're going to have a quick view of the actual services that are bundled with LTI Advantage. So the deep linking, is the UI flow. You're in your learning platform. You want to add a piece of content. When you go add a piece of content, you go and you land on the tool, and you select the content you want to add, and you bring it back. And so in a way, the preferred LTI Advantage way is that you don't create links. You bring links into your course. So it used to be that earlier on in LTI, you would create a blank link and click on the link and bind it on the first page. But now here, the preferred approach is to use deep linking to bring content directly into the course. So that's the flow here. So that's it's a UI flow again. So it's that's an LTI launch here of a specific type, deep linking request. And we see here it's a picker experience, but it could be a picker, it could be a create, it could be a search. So the point here is at the end, you will bring back a definition of content to be added into the course. So it's called deep linking. So you might think it's only used for LTI, but actually it can be used to bring back other kinds of assets into the course. And so the platform is going to say, when it's going to do the deep linking request, it's going to say, this is the kind of thing you can return me back. And it also tells you, this is how I will support rendering those things. So either in an iframe, in a window, or directly embedded for HTML fragments, for example. And also, it would tell you, can you create one or multiple at a time? In some cases, some would do, you can only bring one asset at a time. Some will allow you to return multiple. And also, this here would let you know that when you return back to the learning platform, will the user be prompted to do a final import, or will it be automatically injected in the course? And so that's typically a response that the tool will send to the platform with a definition of a content item. And here it's an LTI link. And this LTI link has a URL to launch a resource. But this one also, it has the custom parameters. But this one also, it has a window and iframe. There's two ways it could be rendered. But also it contains a line item. So what does it say here? It says here, it says to the learning platform, here is the link, and I'd like you to create at the same time a gradebook column, because I intend to return scores for this link. So this is a declarative way to say to the from the tool to say to the platform, create line items, which are gradebook columns. So which brings us to the assignment and grade services. So now that's a true service in the sense that it's a REST service, and so it allows you to do columns management, but in a sandboxed way. So that means you never see the full gradebook. You only see your gradebook columns. You never get the visibility in the overall structure of the gradebook or other columns that may exist in there. It's just a way to know which gradebook columns you have from your tool in this in the current gradebook of the course, of the context. And so with that, you can add gradebook columns. You can modify them. You can also delete them. And what delete means is, depending on the learning platform, but you're basically breaking the relationship between your tool and this gradebook column. And finally, you can get a gradebook column definition, a line item definition, but you can also get all. But get all will only return your columns. So you can never get to see others. And also, so the thing here, we see that you can create a gradebook column. That means you can create gradebook columns that are not related to a link. It used to be that you always needed to, you could say that a link is graded or not, but you always needed a link to be present to have a gradebook column. And now with assignment and grade service, it allows you to create gradebook columns without having an actual link for each gradebook column into the content of the course. So that's what we call decoupled line items. They're not bound to a link. So the very important thing, though, is to report scores. So you can post scores and get scores. And so post scores allows you to just post a score with a comment, like here, 8.8, good job. But it also allows you to return statuses. What I mean by that is that it's also possible to say, I don't have a score because this needs grading. And so this there's a way for the tool to notify the platform that something has been submitted, but it's not. It requires instructor intervention to be graded. And it also, if you get results, you can also see from a tool perspective, you can see local override that might have been done in the gradebook and show within your tool the current scores as visible in the gradebook. And so the claims, because it's LTI, you don't need to know the service URLs when you configure your tool. The assignment and grade services URLs are always communicated as a specific claim into your LTI payload, LTI message payload. So we give you the line items. The line items, which is a way to get all your line items and add or edit them. But also, if this link that you're launching is actually coupled with an actual gradebook column, you will directly know which one it is through the line item URL, which would allow you to directly post score to that line item. And this way, you could mimic the basic outcome flow that was in LTI 1.1, because you get basically this endpoint where you will need to post scores for that link. So that's what assignment and grade service. And so there is names and roles. So names and roles, it allows you to get, it's a read-only service. It allows you to get the current rostering of a context. And it also allows you to get a delta. And so the support for delta is optional. So it may be a platform will let you know in the payload if it supports it or not. But basically the delta allows you to say, give me the membership, the roster changes since the last time I asked. And every request, if it's supported, every request will contain a URL where to query for the differences. So this allows you to somehow keep your roster in sync, but not by reloading the full roster every time, but just by looking up at the difference. And so again, here you would find a specific claim into the LTI message on to where to get the actual enrollment for the current context. And so, as Mark mentioned, this is just the beginning. This is current LTI Advantage. That's those 3 services and the core. But it's meant to grow around that. So the working group is actually working on many different things. So, for example, it's working on the submission review launch. So we've said before, we've seen that we could report that the grade is in progress, but how do we go grade it? And actually, the submission review launch is an LTI launch, which allows you to launch from the gradebook back into the tool to review a grade and eventually grade it also. Then there is context groups, resource link service, tool manifest, discovery, registration, activation, navigation, and just are the things that the working groups are currently working on. And it would be great to hear from you if that's what is more important in those initiatives, or if there are other things you'd be looking for. And other working groups are also integrating with LTI. And obviously, there is a Caliper integration to report events happening within the tool itself back to the learning platform, LRS, and a common cartridge. LTI resource search is another one. So, yeah, that's it. And eventually, those extensions will become optional extensions that you might adopt outside of LTI Advantage, and possibly they might become required for the learning platform to implement in the next bundle of LTI Advantage, which might be in 2020 something. So that's it for me. Any question? All right.
All right. Thank you, Claude.
No problem.
So we wanted to show you, I guess I'll share my screen so we can look at this together, where you would get started using the LTI specifications. So so I've included some links here. Hopefully you're familiar with this page. This is the main LTI public page at the IMS Global website. So
Mark, I can't see your screen.
You're not seeing my screen?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Looks like it started. I thought it had gone through. Let me see if this works now. All right, are you seeing it now?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So down about mid-page, you can find the actual specification documents. And as Claude just gave a very good overview of the LTI core specification, you can access these individual specification documents directly from this part of the website. And specifically, the implementation guide includes some detail that might be helpful for you just to understand the context of LTI Advantage and how we, as a community within IMS and the contributing members who developed LTI Advantage, working together, how the various use cases that we see where the services included in LTI Advantage, the assignment and grades, the names and roles, and the deep linking, and how these relate to real-world scenarios. So if you haven't had a chance to read through the LTI use cases section, I would recommend that as a really helpful starting point to understand the context and the background to what went in to the development of these services and these specific things, these specific services related to the LTI launch. So in addition to the individual specification documents here within the main LTI landing page, you can also access the reference implementation. And here's some instructions on how to start using it. This is a hosted, depending on what kind of platform, if you're a platform or a tool, there's a hosted version of a platform or a tool also here on the IMS website. I would encourage you, as you all are IMS members, to log in, make sure that you're logged in. The full set of services is not available to the general public if they are attempting to use the reference implementation. For the public, I believe it's launch only that is supported. So you would go through and set up a platform and then be able to begin testing it against, for example, a tool that is part of the reference implementation, or if you're a platform, you can also access other tools. So this reference implementation is available to you. Also, if you are, again, an IMS member, this reference implementation, the source code, which is written in Ruby, is also available through the IMS GitHub repository. And I don't know that I don't think we have a link here to the GitHub repository. If you are interested in accessing that source code, you can contact me directly, and we can get you set up to access the source code related to this reference implementation. So those are the essential resources that we have available to begin getting started implementing LTI, and we hope you'll take advantage of them. If you find things that are confusing or you need help, the IMS, there's a set of resources within IMS, our staff members. We have Bracken Mossbacher from who is our LTI engineer to support us. We also, as you're going through conformance certification, Derek Haskins, who I'm not sure if Derek is on, he was having some internet issues today, so Derek is also available. Back here on the main LTI page, if you are looking to begin conformance certification testing, you'll find the links here on the right-hand side, which, if you are not logged into the IMS website, not all of these links are going to be visible or available to you. So always be sure that you're logged in. The content management system is designed that way to show more detail, more links, more resources available to you as IMS members than what you could see if you're just going to the IMS site not logged in. So The certification suite is available here. This is a link to earlier versions of LTI if you're looking to renew or update an existing certification. But if you're looking for LTI Advantage certification, this is the main link, and it will guide you through whether you're whether you're going through as a platform or a tool. So you have the option here. And as you're implementing, this certification test suite is available for you to begin testing at any stage of your development. So if you're wanting to test out bit by bit, you're welcome to do so. So any questions about the resources to begin adopting LTI Advantage?
So it might be worth just noting that there are some other tools available, both on the IMS GitHub and on some of the contributors' GitHubs that they've built for various testing. Blackboard have one written in Node. There's the PHP one that's on the IMS GitHub. So yeah, there's a bunch of different resources in other languages as well, if people want to look at those.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Martin's PHP tool has been widely used, and it's also pretty fun to use. So, and if you're looking for links to those, I will add them to this agenda document, so we have a record of them here within this agenda for you to refer back to. All right, did Wade join? I'm not sure if Wade is on. I don't see his name, so I'm assuming Wade is not here at the moment. I believe Wade was going to lead us through this next portion, just our discussion, getting a picture of your interests, why you're attending this LTI Roundtable, and if you have specific topics that you would like us to discuss. I hope Claude's overview was helpful to understand the scope and the framework of LTI Advantage. That was a pretty quick introduction, but hopefully, I think Claude touched on all the important points. So now is your chance to give us some feedback, the kinds of things that you'd like us to focus on future roundtables. If you have questions we can address today that are burning questions about your already efforts underway to adopt LTI Advantage, let's open it up, see if anyone has any comments, any questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Michael Van Cleek from Lumen Learning. We are a tool provider, and we're a small tool provider, and we're a small company. And we need to make strategic decisions about where to use our development resources. So we need an update from the platform providers about what the status is of 1.3 support, general 1.3 support, the authentication, also specific services like gradebook, so we can make a decision about when to start implementing 1.3.
So for those platforms who are here, if you want to speak up and answer that question individually, that'd be great.
Sure. This is Andrew Thal from 2U. We're a newer member and adopter of LTI, and we are adopting. We have adopted assignment and grade services specifically, and then we are looking to adopt NRPS and deep linking in short order. Caliper is also something that we've been pushing hard on internally and hoping to get more tool adoption of that as well.
This is Eric Preston from Blackboard. We've been certified for all of LTI Advantage services as well as Caliper since about March. So we are fully on board with all of LTI Advantage.
Is that, and I guess another question for the providers, since you are multi-tenant and cloud-based, we need to know, is 1.3 currently available for all of your institutions, all the institutions that are using your LMS?
Yes, it is. So we're half cloud-based and half self-hosted or managed hosted based. So both deployment models, if you will, all of our deployment models support LTI Advantage right now today.
Yeah, and I just want to go on the multi-tenant. Who can do more, can do less. So really the single tenant is a special case of the multi-tenant, and it's still very, very supported. And that's where registration and deployment happened at the same time. And in that use case, you have only one deployment ID by over of two client ID. So that's the differentiator.
This is Sheena Allen from D2L. I can let you know that we are implementing LTI Advantage. We have 1.3 launch and assignments and grades being released in July, and then deep linking and names and role provisioning coming shortly after that.
And this is Carl with Instructure for Canvas. We have support for LTI 1.3 and all three of the services in Canvas available for our customers to use today.
And I will add Moodle also released with 3.7, support for LTI Advantage, or the full set also. It's available with Moodle. And I think Sakai is the same also.
Colin from Genius Plaza also notes in the chat that they're working on their platform and tool for LTI 1.3 as well. Thanks for that question, Michael. Does anyone have any other questions related to, well, anything related to LTI Advantage or specific topics that you'd like to discuss today or a future version or a future meeting of this roundtable group?
This is Andrew Fall from 2U again. And I was curious about some of the working groups that you have for potential improvements to LTI Advantage, and if there are other ones. Yeah, I think there was a request for if there are suggestions for other things as well. We've had some chats in the forums around platform branding, and there's some talk about a UX interop task force. And some client-side specs. Would also be interested in some sort of mobile SDK spec along those lines, and more just curious how those things might be able to be pushed forward, and would love to be a part of it.
I can just start to give a bit of a. So there were two parts in this proposal. There was the post message and some way to classify have some kind of Windows iframe cross-frame communication and standardize that, and we know it's used in some platforms already. So this one was a little bit more concrete, and that's something that Bracken worked on a proposal actually some time ago, and I think that's something we can move forward. Not too sure. I think we really need sponsors and people that are really going to say, yes, we want this to happen, and we're going to work with either a platform or to try to push the solution forward, because we usually don't try. It's hard to do a specification in the vacuum. So that's why we look for people within the working group or joining the working group to take on a given aspect. And this would be one that I think is somewhat well delineated, the messages. The other one around the UX normalization and the look and feel. Have we found this one rather elusive within the working group? We understand the need, but we're not too sure we can actually crystallize around the solution that really would be portable. I mean, really earlier on, LTI came up with this idea of exchanging the CSS, and that was really too weak, and we cannot do much about it. I think there are ways now to solve it, but we haven't. I think we're still a bit ambivalent to understand if there is really a push to standardize the look and feel of a tool so that it matches the launching platform.
Okay, great. And sorry, you said the working group was meeting about those things. Is that closed, or is that are you
So
looking
we've been discussing a few times about it. It's like it's one of those things that is in the list, and so again we split the two: the messages and the Windows Post message, and the UX integration. And so the thing on the UX, we feel like with CSS variables, I think there is a hint of a solution there, but we're not too sure from the platforms present and the tool present that they were something that people would invest on. So it always goes back to we need sponsors and people who want to solve that solution to work on it and on that little piece of this for this to really move forward. Because that's really how it works. And if someone wants to solve a solution, they work on it. Usually it involves a platform and a tool. They work something, and they can work within the working group, but they can really drive it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, Mark, if you want to add anything.
I would just say that for the most part, the activity on these new extensions is currently taking place within our weekly LTI project group meetings, for which we've combined or opened up the doors for that weekly meeting today for this roundtable meeting, and we plan to continue these monthly, assuming they're helpful and a benefit to you who have questions or are interested in learning more. So we can certainly provide some updates to the full membership during these meetings about what's coming and the progress of this extension development work. But because just an hour once a week really limits us as far as how much progress we can make on these issues, and having a fairly significant number of new extensions that folks have already identified. So it's a matter of prioritizing them. And as Claude said, if there are groups of individuals, we encourage our IMS members to work together, not necessarily it doesn't have to be within the context of a formal meeting, but just working through a document that lays out a solution that can be shared back to the full group for further vetting and comment and refinement. And so there's a lot of work that gets done within IMS by small motivated groups that have a critical need and are willing to put in time and discussion and partnering with others to figure out how this can become a standard and to improve interoperability in our integration work through LTI. So, as I think, Andrew, based on a question that you raised in a forum, we've put together a document. I think that's on the UX support one. And so that document is a good starting point. I think it's a shared Google document that, the more detail we can add to that to understand the user stories and begin to build out some use cases, some solutions to those is really where we're at with a lot of these extensions. And because there are so many, we're working with the product steering committee to help us prioritize what we should do first. And so these meetings will certainly serve as a way to give you more insight and an update on the progress that the project group is making during its regular weekly sessions. So you also mentioned, and just for those that may not be aware, there's some other existing or soon to be released specifications that are already built on LTI Advantage. There's the LTI Resource Search. That's a published specification. There's also a proctoring service for test proctoring for a software under the proctoring category that would offer a secure browser and perhaps recording of audio or cameras to ensure the integrity of an exam that's taking place remotely. That's also using LTI 1.3 deep linking and the Advantage services, and that will be released here in a couple of weeks as a candidate final spec, and that's been driven by a separate group, largely under the IMS digital assessment initiatives. So to answer your question, Andrew, yes, there are existing work that's going on within the LTI project group formally, but then also other groups that have been and are aware of the work of LTI, the LTI project group, and now the available LTI Advantage specifications to build additional things onto that. So if anyone's interested in proctoring, there will be a new LTI service for proctoring specifically that will be released soon. All right. Does anyone have other questions? Is topics for future discussion? I hope this information's been useful, and we're obviously interested in getting more people involved and having these roundtables on a monthly schedule. I think we've identified the fourth Tuesday of every month. As we get towards the end of the year with Thanksgiving and Christmas, there will obviously be and likely other conflicts, so we'll need to adjust the schedule a little bit as we approach those fixed holidays that would likely occur on the 4th or around that same time frame. So, but I hope this is useful. We are interested in how you heard about this. If it was just the email messages that you received from IMS, perhaps other members invited you. We'd like to get others involved. So if you have partners you're working with, other IMS members that you think would benefit from these roundtable meetings, we're certainly want to open them up. And if there's ways that you think IMS can better spread the word or get people involved, we're happy to approach this in some other ways than what we did for this first meeting as well.
So no last question or at large on LTI Advantage or something that's wondering or you're blocking you a bit now, or any feedback on the onboarding on the LTI specification, the things that we could do better to exchange or expose this information outside? Okay.
All right. So some future topics that we've already identified, you can see them on our agenda document. So in addition, how to get started with LTI Advantage, a scenario of where do you begin if you don't have any LTI experience or haven't looked at LTI Advantage at all, getting into some more details of how you would begin that exercise from ground zero. Also discussing how migrating from LTI 1.0, LTI 1.1, LTI 1.2, if you have existing implementations of LTI, if there are some tips, tricks, recommendations that would be helpful as a migration strategy. We also want to address that as a future topic. We've also thought about allowing, whether it would be an entire session, maybe a full hour split by 2 platforms, for example, or a platform and a tool to showcase their implementation, to provide some insight on how you would work alongside this partner tool or partner platform with your own integration. So those are some current ideas that we've identified for future roundtable sessions. So does anyone have any other thoughts or ideas that would be useful, a helpful use of your time in these roundtable meetings?
This is Colin from Genius Plaza. I think the last statement and this statement both together, about the future topics. I think starting from ground zero and some of the experiences we've had and all that, I think that's a great jumping off point for us to kind of, so I'm looking forward to that for the future.
All right, thanks for that feedback. And with our next meeting planned for that 4th Tuesday in July, the 23rd, we will begin preparing some materials and details to share on how you would approach it, either from that starting point to with nothing, or doing some migration exercises. So, so any other questions? All right, well, you all have been very quiet but polite. I appreciate that. I want to thank you for your participation. I hope this is useful. Again, we'll share the link to this recording, and I'll add some more details here to our agenda document so you can access all these details down the road. We'll also let you know of plans if we do share these recordings and these resources as a public resource. We'll let you know on that topic as well. So thank you, and we'll see you next month at our July 23rd roundtable. Thanks, everyone. I'll include the recording to this, the WebEx, in this agenda document, the shared Google document that we've been using today, so you can find it in multiple places. So, thanks, everyone. Appreciate your participation and attendance, and we'll talk again in the future.
Bye.
Bye-bye.